thinking about what has gone on in China and thinking about what is going to be, do you think a company like an Apple should be worried? Should big, iconic U.S. companies be afraid for their businesses in China for, retaliation reasons, for COVID lockdown reasons, all of these different things that we've been talking about?
Retaliation is certainly worth thinking about, Melissa, especially since the Biden administration a couple of weeks ago announced these extraordinarily draconian measures against U.S. exports going to boost Chinese technology. And China has retaliated tit for tat on virtually everything we've done since 2018. And, I wouldn't rule out significant retaliation from this. But, I just want to add one thing to, the insights that you and your group were offering along with Eunice. I want you just to think about one name, not Xi Jinping, but a gentleman by the name of Wang Huning, Huning. He was reappointed as one of the top 7 standing committee members of the Politburo. Why do I focus on him? He's the guy that created the ideological thrust of Xi Jinping thought, the Chinese dream, and he's written the book on China's view of a declining America, which has urged the Chinese leadership to embrace the notion of conflict with the United States. He's 67 years old. He was rumored to be retiring. He didn't retire. He was elevated. He's most likely to become either the chairman of the National People's Congress or the chairman of the consultative political group in China. He's a big deal in terms of driving what Xi Jinping is all about. He's the guy behind the scenes that has given the U.S. so many problems, and he was just promoted, and very few people are focusing on that right now.
Mr. Roach, one of the things I've said and I've been concerned about is, as Americans, we look at things through our lens, right? But the world's a much different place. And if your opponent is willing to lose battles to win wars and doesn't have a 5-minute timeline, but a 50-year timeline, that's a very difficult opponent to beat. That is the Chinese. Can you speak to that? Because I think everything we've been seeing over the last couple of years speaks to exactly that. Willing to lose battles, but playing the long game.
Yeah, their concept of strategy is very, very different. Their perspective is different. Xi Jinping has laid out objectives to hit great power status by 2049, which would be the 100th anniversary of the founding of the PRC. And they've taken a lot of strategic actions in terms of their military, the power consolidation politically, and the shift back to state control to help implement that strategy. So, we think very myopically. We do things short term, and it's a real disconnect in terms of us against them with these two different strategic perspectives.
How should U.S. companies think about retaliation? Or how should the United States think about retaliation in general? Could it be using the zero COVID policy to enact pain in parts of Guangzhou right now are shut down, and that could really cause a problem because that's a factory center of China. Or should it be measures like the U.S. is taking when it comes to chips, where it's a more formalized sort of act by China?
Look, Melissa, we fired a big shot here, and this was. You could argue, an initiative that we took. And so the next move here is not retaliation from us, but retaliation from China. And I think we need to take those risks very, very seriously. And I don't think China's going to do anything deliberately to hurt its own system. It will take actions that will be directed at the United States. It could be, anything from rare earths, which we need for a lot of our own products here, to a number of other actions that we are vulnerable in. But, they've obviously had their hands full in dealing with this Congress over the past week, and we have yet to fully see what they're going to do in response. But make no mistake, they're going to definitely do something in response to these export sanctions on aimed at strangling their advanced technologies.
Mr. Roach, it's Karen. Thanks for being on. You talked about this big shot across the bow the Biden administration made. Do you think they did the right thing?
Well, that's a tough question, Karen. I mean, these are draconian measures, and for them to have done what they did, you have to presume that they have deep intelligence, that China is utilizing this technology not just for aggressive military actions such as building supersonic missiles, but also to undermine American technology, which we view as being emblematic of our future, the prosperity of our nation. I would have to say that the evidence there is a lot sketchier than Washington leads you to believe. So we've gone very far over the bow here on this one, and let's just hope that we have the evidence to validate these actions, because these are extraordinarily tough measures aimed truly at strangling Chinese technology.
How do you, or if you were at Morgan Stanley still, Stephen, and you were advising a company whose time frame was 5 years, which is how long Xi has solidified his power, his term, how should a company view the growth trajectory over these next 5 years?
Well, look, I think China will grow, Melissa, but I think if we're talking about companies assessing their risks of China exposure, they better be working pretty hard on Plan B here, because no one knows, again, how China is going to play these types of actions down the road. And just to presume that it's going to, blow over now that the Party Congress is behind us, and we'll go back to the way it used to be, whatever that was, I think that is being a little bit too blasé about potential risks. We are in a serious conflict. We've gone in 5 years, we've gone from a trade war to a full-blown tech war to the early stages of a Cold War. And so I wrote this book called Accidental Conflict with this in mind. When you're on this path of conflict escalation, it doesn't take much of a spark to turn it into something far worse. And we got plenty of sparks right now. Just think back at what happened in the Taiwan Straits in early August. So, we're at a point of danger, and Xi Jinping, filled with power, and with his buddy Wang Huning, poised to still seize the opportunity to take on what they strongly believe is a declining America. The risks of conflict cannot be dismissed.